Next up, Paul, is something really interesting that I think you might have been probably the first, if not the only person to really hit on in a big way. So in November of 2022, Meta AI, so formerly Facebook, introduced something called Cicero, the first AI to play at a human level in diplomacy, a strategy game that requires building trust, negotiating, and cooperating with multiple players. Now, that news isn't exactly new, and it's a pretty impressive achievement. But what you really pointed out in some commentary on LinkedIn is that, in essence, Meta has built an AI agent with the goal of making it fundamentally honest and fundamentally collaborative. And you wrote that this has much, much bigger implications outside of mastering a strategy game. And you said, quote, this sort of technology may find its way into your business and life, perhaps within the next several years. And, quote, in the not so distant future, you will have AI assistants that help negotiate everything in real time based on your optimal desired outcome. Can you unpack a bit more for us the wider implications of something like Cicero in real world business applications?
This one came from just a lot of the conversations I'm having. So I've mentioned in past episodes, once ChatGPT came out, I just started getting the calls, text messages, LinkedIn messages, Twitter DMs, like people at major software companies, venture capitalist friends, people building AI software. And so for the last couple months, I've just been not overwhelmed isn't the right word. There's been a flood of inquiries and conversations. And the thing I'm struck by is how many of them are solely focused on solving for ChatGPT and
Mm,
related generative AI tools. That ChatGPT, as we've talked about before, was the inflection point where the mass audience of marketers and business leaders took note of artificial intelligence. And if they stop at ChatGPT, then their perception of what AI is and the roadmap they have to solve for is to figure out language technology or generative AI, at a wider scale if you involve images and videos and audio. And what I kept guiding my friends, especially investors and SaaS executives, is if you're only solving for ChatGPT and AI writing tools, you are missing the much larger picture. That as we said in the previous episode, it's just the tip of the iceberg. Like
mm,
it really is, and it's great because it got people to pay attention. But I think the bigger opportunity is so much more massive than people understand, as is the threat. Um, and so in the case of Cicero, like I've shared this with, again, a few people privately and explained what I thought was the significance of this moment. And then I finally just I was like, okay, I have to play this out in my mind. And I think I even reached out to you. I was like, did we already talk about this on the show? Like, I feel like this has been in my head for a while. And we are like, no, we didn't really go in depth. I was like, all right, well, I guess it's time to go in depth. So the the thing that's key is like I know that for years in the major AI research labs, they've been working on the ability to give the AI deeper understanding of human language and the ability to reason, the ability to have like a chain of thought, chain of logic, to like think through thoughts and outcomes and things like that. And so when I saw the Cicero moment, and then I listened to the Lex Friedman podcast where the guy who kind of co-created Cicero was sharing the background story,
mm.
it just started to connect some dots for me about the significance of what was about to happen. And so I think like if I go into the original LinkedIn post, I made a note that in November 22, Meta introduced Cicero, first AI to play at the human level, as you mentioned. Then I used the quote from Jan LeCun, who we've mentioned on the show many times, the VP and chief AI scientist at Meta. And he said on the Cicero announcement, this breakthrough rests in the achievement of combining two different areas of AI, strategic reasoning and natural language processing. The integration of these techniques gives Cicero the ability to reason and strategize with regard to players' motivation, then use natural language to communicate, reach agreements, to achieve shared objectives, form alliances, and coordinate plans. And I just like when I think about that and you realize how prevalent those things are in business and in our lives and in
Mm,
business, and you start to think, wait a second, what if, like in my mind, I immediately saw a salesperson either on a call or an email, let's say it's a call, and the AI is listening to the call, recommending to the salesperson what to say. Because what happens in any negotiation, well, again, whether it's buying software or a merger and acquisition, or the examples I gave in business like sales, merger and acquisition, fundraising, contract negotiation, or in your life, which may be like home buying, legal disputes, contracts, compensation when you're negotiating your fantasy sports trades, like it could be get kind of crazy. You're negotiating between two or more parties, and there's likely misaligned goals. So as the
Mm,
salesperson, I want you to buy my software for $1,000 a month. You want to buy it, but you don't want to spend more than $800 a month. And so we're going to go back and forth, and we're going to try and figure it out. So our goals are a little bit different, but we want a mutually beneficial outcome. And so in sales, you're going through these processes, and usually you're just reading off of a playbook. Okay, if they don't agree to this, then offer them that. If they where the AI, what they're proposing within Cicero is it's going to in real time be able to analyze the intentions, the emotions, the behaviors, the signals of the other party and recommend to you the best way to achieve a mutually beneficial outcome with that individual. And so I just started thinking about this. And so what I wrote was that these agents may be present through a chatbot, email client, browser extension, AirPods, AR glasses, or other app that's listening, quotes, in the background and making recommendations of what to do and say. Um, and to me, when we think about this, it seems like this very human process. Like I could totally understand people being like, yeah, I don't buy into this one. Like I get the AI writing stuff, but this humans can't, they can't do what humans are doing here.
mm,
And so I said, like, we use language to communicate, we tap into experience and knowledge, we use instinct and judgment, we read and understand emotions and behaviors and motivations of others through their words and actions. And it just doesn't seem real that an AI can do this. And yet, if you read the paper or if you listen to the people that built it seems like we're not far from this. And so my whole point with talking about Cicero and sort of trying to connect some dots in very practical use cases for people is that the impact and opportunity and threats of AI are so much greater than what most people realize. And Cicero to me is a very practical, apparently semi near term application because they open source this research. So
mm,
there's nothing stopping someone from like reading the same stuff I did or listening to this podcast and be like, oh, should I go build that?
mm.
Like, and just building an app just for salespeople or
Yep.
building it for a specific solution. So yeah, I just think it's a really tangible example of AI being way bigger than just solving for writing tools.
Yeah, for sure. And it's worth reminding people, especially those newer to the space, that when you read an article that says something like AI mastered the game of Go or diplomacy or whatever, that's really interesting and impressive. But the way a lot of the models underlying these technologies work, there are much wider applications. The game is a test of much wider and bigger skills that, to your point, can be used in so many other real world contexts.
Yeah, and it just goes back as we talked about in the responsible AI, you have to understand the true potential of what AI can do. You have to understand its limitations. You have to understand its dangers. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to truly comprehend the impact it's going to have on your organization and your own career. And I just like, I think I said in that post that this could be, what did I say at the end? It could be in um, within a year or maybe 5 to 10. Like we
Mm,
don't know. What generally happens is these AI researchers have these breakthroughs or envision these breakthroughs, and they're really horrible at actually knowing when they're going to either truly achieve a breakthrough they're proposing, like AGI would be an example. Artificial general intelligence is the hot one, has been for 10 years. When are we going to get there? You'll get all these differing opinions. Could be in 12 months, could be in 12 years, could be in 50 years. They're terrible at actually predicting when it's going to happen or when it's going to be commercialized. And I think this is an example of if you polled a bunch of top AI researchers that says, what are we going to see the first real life application of Cicero in business?
mm.
You might get, I think you could do it in 3 months, or you might get, I don't know, 5, 10 years, maybe. And they're not right or wrong. Like no one knows. I think that's a big theme. If you listen to this show often, we don't know, they don't know, We just try and pay attention to what's going on, connect the dots, and give listeners the best information we have available so that you can figure out the impact on your own path. And like, do you want to go learn about Cicero? That's up to you. Like, if you're curious about it, you want to explore it, go down that path. If you don't, then keep playing around with AI writing tools. Like, there's no right or wrong path right now.
Mhm.
We're just trying to give people a few different roads to pursue, I would say.